Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great day. This is week 5, and we are looking at the article by um, Carol Fitz called Ideology, Life Practices, and Pop Culture. And so I wanted to spend a few minutes with you and just kind of talk about the article today and spend a little time with you. I'm going to go ahead. I've pulled up the article and I'm going to go ahead and share screen with you for a second. I know we don't usually do this, but I thought we would read the first part of the article together. And this is a article where Karen Fitz starts to talk about what makes a good writing classroom, what makes a classroom that works. And so I was just going to read this and then to get us started off and start thinking about the material. So the first paragraph says, questions about what general education courses should accomplish are common, and they elicit lively debate. Recent issues of JGE, for instance, have proposed consideration of values, development of information literacy, and improvements in note-taking and study skills as essential to students' introduction to the practices and perspectives of intellectual labor. However, an aspect of general education mentioned routinely, thus suggesting its overarching importance, is students' need to engage in critical thinking. The common thread in this conversation is particularly pertinent to those of us who teach writing. Consensus in post-secondary education has been difficult to reach about general education writing. With composition rhetoric, CompRet, theory emphasizes the impossibility of teaching writing absent critical thinking about something. Atheoretical, also sometimes referred as current traditional ideas of teaching, writing as teaching grammatically correctness somehow maintain their insidious hold. In part, this is because general education writing is owned by a number of non-specialized stakeholders. For instance, the majority of general education writing courses are taught by adjunct faculty, many of whom have advanced degrees in literature and little coursework in CompRet. A subtle pressure is applied by first-year students themselves, who often think of writing as they were taught to think about it in elementary and secondary school, as either grammar instruction or writing about their feelings. And finally, the University of Writing in Academy, most, if not all, professors write and assign their students to write, sometimes make the subdiscipline of English seem more like a common sense endeavor than a theoretically informed one. These circumstances often create tensions concerning what writing instruction is or should be. A service course in which students learn a set of skills for later use, or a course in its own right in which students engage in intellectual labor. See Stevens 2001 for a historical perspective on the skills knowledge dichotomy in general education curricula in the University of Chicago and St. John's College. Given this context, designing theoretically sound and principled general education writing courses involves going against the grain, against one's callings and students. And then she's going to get to her purpose here. My purpose here is to describe a small number of assignments that I have used in recent years to complicate students' responses to writing assignments and orient them to a new understanding of writing itself. Proceeding from a cultural studies perspective, these writing projects ask students to interact literally with cultural material by making conscious decisions about the value and usefulness of the information they know. To assist students in critical thinking, as the common thread of general education discussion suggests, this turn towards a cultural rhetoric is essential. In addition, these assignments blur the boundaries between high and low culture, thus bringing popular culture into the classroom focus. Cultural studies perspective is what we value as knowledge, is culturally mediated. Characteristics of elite texts are in continual flux. New forms appear, former ones lose status, or corrupt or crude, and sometimes disappear altogether. The softening of high-low distinctions allows us to better understand what our society permits, honors, or disregards. It also indicates to students the valuable connections between one's education and one's everyday life. The need becomes more evident to think critically about a variety of what may be called life practices. I'm going to stop there. As you can see, the article continues to go on, and she continues to talk on this path. But I wanted to start off with you with a couple things. So I know that this article is really talking about post-secondary education, so after high school. And I know many of you will be teaching different levels. You might be teaching in elementary school, or you might be teaching junior high or high school. So then why does this article matter if it's really talking about what's important theoretically for post-education? And the truth is that everything builds upon each other within our education, right? So everything that we've done is building upon our experiences. So we take our experiences from elementary and junior high and high school into our college experience. And so how we think about reading and writing and what we value within it is super important. And I love this idea that Fitz is bringing up about literature and language constantly being in flux, right? This idea that that we have a canon or literary tests that we think are important or high reading. But really, when we're thinking about students and valuing what students bring to the classroom, we need to think about how reading and writing is constantly fluid and changing, and how words are fluently changing. I remember this was a huge change for me when I was in grad school, because I, for the first time, had a professor that said, it's not about right or wrong. It's not right or wrong. Language is always changing. And that was really mind-blowing for me as a student. And it made me think about how I had learned about reading and writing, you know, always getting papers back with red pens on it, or some teachers gave you A's and said you were an excellent writer, and then some didn't like your writing. And that was always kind of hard for me to figure out, you know, well, is it good or bad, or why does one teacher like it and one not? And the truth is that writing is fluid, and it probably depends upon the genre and what you're doing. But I found this super intriguing, that idea of correctness, when it goes away, actually frees students to think about texts in different ways and associate them, as Fitz is saying, with their everyday life. That what is the value of reading and writing if it's not connected to the things that you do every day, since we read and write and communicate on a daily basis, right? So it has to connect somehow within our everyday life, and how we are going to utilize it and use it within the workplace and in our communication efforts with others. So I think that Fitz brings up this really interesting idea about pop culture. And as you can see from my course, I use pop culture texts because I think students connect with them. And I think this is something that can be transferred down to lower levels, right? That we can start to think about cultural relevancy within the text that we're bringing into the classroom. That there's not necessarily good or bad texts. There's just texts that are different, and how we respond to them is different, right? For example, in our classroom, when you're writing your blogs, I've said to many of you, it's okay, you can use I. You can have an opinion about the material. In fact, I want that. It's super important in our class to have that reflective nature. Well, that behavior would not necessarily work in a biology classroom, right? Where you are where you're doing an experiment. Your opinion about it is irrelevant. So genre really plays a factor in that, in your decision on how you're going to communicate what you found. So I think it's really important to think about these ideas, and I think Fitz gives us the opportunity to begin considering that. So I'd like you to poke around in Fitz, find something that is valuable to you, see how you can apply it to either the classroom that you want to teach or the classrooms that you've been in, and do a response for me on Blackboard by Friday. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. I hope you're having a super day, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye.